Hey cousins, welcome to Respectfully. So, as we all know, back on September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk was assassinated during one of his iconic campus stops. And I really needed to take a break before I could speak on this. I feel like I've really gone through, like many of us, the several stages of grief where one day I'm super sad, one day I'm angry, one day I'm confused. It's like at this point, I don't really know. I just know that I am determined to keep Charlie Kirk's legacy alive to the best of my abilities, as I know every single person that loved and supported Charlie is ready to do. I want to give a huge shout out to everybody who helped put together that gorgeous memorial that was over the weekend. I had the honor and the privilege to be able to attend over in Glendale, Arizona, to put together an event where 100,000 people were able to come and worship Christ, and also just to keep Charlie's memory alive. Like, that was beautiful. And to do that in 7 days, 7 tireless days, while being emotional and distraught, I don't know how they have the strength to do it. And, shout out especially even to my personal friend, Dylan Erickson. He just sent a Snapchat. He's on the road again, continuing Charlie's campus tour, and they're just not missing a beat, under the leadership now of Mrs. Erica Kirk, the beloved widow of Charlie Kirk. And it's a lot to process. It really is a lot to process. First of all, the trauma of it that all of us endured, especially those who have seen the video. How I found out, I basically heard that Charlie was hurt and that he got hit in the neck, which I thought was going to be like a punch or a BB gun or something. I was not prepared to open Twitter, and the first thing I see is someone that I viewed as someone that was really becoming a friend to me this year, someone who was very much a mentor of mine, and more importantly, a husband and a father to 2 very young kids who loved him. To see the bloodshed in such a gruesome way was just something I wasn't prepared for. I was actually on a plane when I saw it, and the second I saw what happened, I screamed at the top of my lungs on this plane. And then to make it even worse, a couple minutes later, I hear somebody else on the plane viewing it and just starts hysterically laughing and making a whole spectacle about how cool he thought it was that Charlie was assassinated. And accordingly, I stood up and I couldn't even say words, because anything I could have or would have said and wanted to say would have put me on a no-fly list. So I just mugged the person. And then I feel like at that moment, they realized that they had lost their humanity, which I feel like way more people need to have that realization that if this is something you celebrate, whether it was someone on the left, the right, the far left, or the far right, to celebrate that in America is inhumane. Dare I say, it actually is humane. It just shows how evil humans are willing to be when they aren't led by something that creates a sense of purpose and value and virtue in them, such as religion, such as Christ. But I can't lie, it was really painful, again, to see that people were that evil, and then also to think like, wow, like I'm somebody that feels like I want to follow in Charlie Kirk's footsteps in so many ways. It's like the realization too that if something were to happen to myself or one of my friends, God forbid, there would be celebration online from the left. Again, a sentiment that I never could imagine having for anyone on the left, and that when I was on the left, I never would have had for someone on the right. So it's really frightening. It's really frightening. And then to continuously see the footage and the reactions and the crazy things that people were posting, I really just needed a break from social media, which I encourage more people to do. When you feel like social media is draining at your soul and at your spirit, it's your time to take a break. And I was on my way to Italy for a wedding and for a mini vacation, and it was the perfect place for me to be, to turn my phone off, to decompress, to reflect, and remember how important it is to keep going and to keep fighting and keep living on, even when there's evil in the world. I do want to say I'm very much against censorship, and I'm very grateful that on platforms like X, we're able to see the reality of what happens with a lot of these horrendous situations, like such as I just said a couple weeks ago with the Ukrainian that was brutally murdered on a train, Irina Zarutska. I was just saying how if it wasn't for Elon Musk, we would not have known how gruesome this murder was. So it is important for us to be aware of the reality of what's going on. But my goodness, have some decency. The amount of people I saw continuously posting that clip like it's a highlight reel. Then I see people making it into memes. And I even see right-wing creators having the video up and then them staring inquisitively at the camera as they react to it. Have some class. That is disgusting. I had a reporter reach out to me and ask if I think the video should be banned. I don't think that it should be banned because that's a slippery slope, but good Lord, have some decency. Nobody wants to go on the internet and see that. And the more we continue to see horrendous things like that, the more we become desensitized as a society. And I just don't think anyone should have to see that, again, especially of a friend, a mentor, a family member. But even if you had no idea who Charlie Kirk was, to see a clip like that, it's just very, very unsettling. And it's sad that so many people decided to exploit the situation for various reasons. You had immediate chaos even come before I even get to the left, because you know that's going to be a conversation. And another thing that's going to be a conversation is this whole Hamptons debacle. If you've seen that, I'm going to save that for the end of the episode because I really want this to be about Charlie's legacy and the great things that he's done that I can even begin to quantify. It's like the more I learn about his background and how he got to where he was, it's like, it's crazy to me that that was a 31-year-old man who accomplished as much as he did. But, you know, there's so many people on the right and right-wing creators who, one, were exploiting the murder, just making reaction after reaction after reaction video. If it wasn't to the murder itself, it was to the horrible things that the left was saying. And I don't know why people on the right are acting surprised that the left was being evil. Like, yes, it was awful. And yes, the things that people are saying is awful, but we knew that they were like this already. This is not new. It might have taken it to a new degree, but who's shocked? If you're shocked, you haven't been paying attention. Then this immediate chaos of people trying to make this about Israel again. It's like, for the love of God, can y'all point at something that isn't Israel? There are so many situations where it is clearly Islam, China, you, the left, the right. It is clearly somebody else. And y'all have to blame Israel. Y'all have to connect Israel to everything. It's getting disgusting. Okay? You look insane. And anybody that's watching this, you pretty much, you know who I'm talking about. Or you've seen people, I'm talking about a lot of people, mind you. This isn't about one person. I'm talking about a lot of people who are trying to turn this into some conspiracy. And all you're doing is you're getting in the way of the actual investigation. Take a seat. Okay? For once. I'm not saying to stop asking questions, but ask smart ones. Stop being an idiot trying to pin this on a trip to the Hamptons. But again, we'll get to that later. But I am shocked by how insane this aftermath has been from the right and the way that so many people have become divisive so quickly. We had about 3 days of kumbaya until the right just started attacking itself. And then you have the left, who, again, I don't even want to fixate on that too much. I have completely just scrolled by. I've seen the memes. I've seen the videos. It seems to get more disgusting and creative every day. But I refuse to allow that to be my memory of Charlie Kirk as I'm sitting here grieving. I have way too much respect for who Charlie Kirk was, who he still is to this day, and what he means to all of us as Americans and to Western society and the free world. I have way too much respect for him to even sit and entertain the disgusting things that the left have to say. And again, I understand why creators, rent is due. So I get it why so many of you are constantly reacting to the things that the left is saying, but why give it air? Why give it air? I just don't get why. And maybe I'm being a hypocrite because I react to everything under the sun. And if I am, so be it. It feels personal. It feels crazy to me to sit here and watch so many people entertain the horrible things that the left are saying. Now, if it's like a public figure like Jimmy Kimmel or somebody else that's saying awful things, clock them. But these faceless accounts that don't even have the courage to show their face, if they're making these cowardly statements and saying these awful things on the internet about a deceased father and husband, I refuse to give these people light of day. So today I want to honor Charlie Kirk, and that's the most important aspect to walk away with from this conversation, because he meant so much to all of us. He again meant so much to his young family, first and foremost. Erica Kirk, I met her very briefly once. I am blown away by her strength. For her to get on stage and deliver the powerful message that she did over this weekend, I cannot verbally express enough how impressed I am by that. And for her to be so Christ-like in the way that we are called to be, and to stand on stage and say that she forgives the killer, so glad she does. I'm not there yet. But for her to be the spouse of Charlie, who's probably hurting the most of anybody on this planet right now, for her to show forgiveness to this clout-chasing assassin, I'm so blown away and inspired. She's more than just a strong woman. She is a woman of strength. There's a big difference there. That is a woman whose strength is coming from something divine and something that's so much bigger than growing calluses from the world. I feel like you become a strong person just from the worldly things you deal with, but to become a man or a woman of strength, that is something that's internal and spiritual and also bigger than anything that we can fully grasp or comprehend, and something that I know Charlie is looking down on and smiling. And please, please, please continue to support Turning Point USA. You know, PragerU and Turning Point, we're basically sister companies. We are our sister nonprofits. We work together all the time. We love each other. We support each other. I know Marissa Streit, our CEO here at PragerU, has been grieving very hard. You know, her and Charlie essentially started building PragerU and Turning Point around the same time. So they've been friends since Charlie was early 20s. So it's horrific to see this. And I'm just so impressed. And Erica, thank you. Thank you for continuing this mission for Charlie and for America. Thank you to Tyler Boyer, to everybody that's over there handling business at Turning Point, high level and entry level staff, everybody in between. You guys are working so hard. I know it's like a compound over there of them just working early days and late nights while they're hurting the most. So it's so impressive to see, but that's the type of people that Charlie Kirk surrounded himself by. He surrounded himself by people that were so passionate about fighting for this country and saving generations and pursuing truth and bringing more people to faith. Turning Point Faith, I didn't even realize how big that organization had gotten until the last couple of weeks, and realizing how many thousands of pastors they're bringing on board. And shout out to every university and high school that is now interested in having a new Turning Point chapter. I heard that there were over 50,000 inquiries that came in just days after Charlie's assassination. And if that's not reason to give glory to God, wow, it's honestly mind-blowing. And if you haven't watched the memorial over the weekend and just seeing how, again, you had nearly 100,000 people, because they filled out the State Farm Stadium. And then they had, I think it's the Desert Eagle Stadium or something like that, or arena that's next door, that they filled up as well. And you had all these people worshiping, and you have all these people who have been going to church again. And, you know, Charlie is credited for much of the movement of getting, you know, young Gen Z men at record numbers, or at, you know, paradigm shifting numbers going back to church. And now you have all these people who are saying they dusted off their Bible for the first time in 10 years. And as someone who has been increasingly getting back into my faith in the last year, especially, that to me is so beautiful to see that people are pursuing that again. And it's because of this tragedy, but this tragedy was actually, you know, God's plan. And dare I say divine intervention, that all these people are now being inspired to walk with faith again, or for the first time. And it just goes to show that murdering Charlie Kirk did not silence him. It amplified everything that he stood for. It's the Barbra Streisand effect like I've never seen before, where you try to not bring attention to someone or something or to someone's message, but now because you've tried to silence it, it is that much louder. And you now have a million more Charlie Kirks out there that are going to be relentless in spreading his message and spreading truth and just being men and women of principle again, because our world was getting very dark and very cold and very sinister. And especially in my generation, I'm the oldest month of Gen Z, almost a millennial. I'd be a millennial if I were 2 weeks older, but you have the millennial and Gen Z eras where things got so progressive, it seemed like it was bound to fail. Like there was no point of return. But the work of Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk has been so instrumental in turning that around. Now, back to the left real quick. You know, the left has been calling him every name in the book. You know the typical ones: bigot, racist, fascist, everything you can think of. And the thing is they were doing that while he was here. So you really have two types of people. You have those who now recognize that their extremist words are what led to Charlie's assassination. You have the people who realize that, oh, maybe calling him a Nazi wasn't the smartest idea. Maybe saying that over and over is what led to political violence, because you have people afraid that they're literally going to lose their rights. The amount of people who, even when Trump won the election, that genuinely thought I was going to be put in shackles, insane. But that's what extremist rhetoric does. So you have the people that are now waking up and realizing that. And a lot of them have reached out to me because I pride myself in the fact that I have followers on, left of center, the sane left, or even some that are left that just like to hear out what someone right of center has to say. A lot of them have reached out to me being like, wow, like I see the damage of the words that we say, because you don't see the right going out and continuously choosing to murder people. You didn't see that happening to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. You didn't even see that to Joe Biden after what happened in Afghanistan with those 13 service members. If there was a time that was going to happen, I'm glad it didn't, but I thought it was going to be some military guy with PTSD that went and did it. But it didn't happen. That's not what people with principle do. But people who are fueled with rage and anger and told that they have a reason to be, and that this guy, Charlie Kirk, who's really quite moderate conservative when you really get down into the details of it, in comparison to a lot of the main heads on the right, it's baffling. It's baffling that this happened to him. But the other kind of person that you have from the left now is you have those that are standing behind calling him a bigot and calling him a Nazi and calling him all these awful things. And you know what? To give the benefit of the doubt, at least you're consistent, but have some class. Have some class. Read the room, because everybody thinks that you're disgusting. And better yet, have the decency to challenge his ideas with facts and rebuttals rather than name calling and bullets. Because Charlie Kirk was literally the epitome of democracy. He was the one that exemplified democracy more than anybody in this country, dare I say. Because a lot of people say, oh, I'm indifferent on Charlie Kirk. I agree with some things he said, but a lot of people say, I didn't agree with everything that Charlie Kirk said. He loved that. That was his favorite kind of person. Because you know what that means? If you are the type of person to say that you couldn't agree with everything that Charlie said, but there were some things that you did, you're the perfect person to have a conversation with Charlie Kirk, because it means that you're not letting anyone tell you what to think. You're thinking. I always say that. I always say that on this platform, that I don't want to tell people what to think. I want to get people to think. And do you know who that comes from? That comes from Charlie Kirk. That comes from Charlie Kirk's legacy and everything that he stood for. It comes from the fact that this is somebody who loved to have discourse and to reach across the aisle and to welcome people to come and challenge his ideas and do it in a way that's so respectful and to do it in a way that's with integrity. He loved to welcome it. He did it in good faith. He was a part of why I do what I do. He's part of why I, even as a liberal, I wanted to debate Charlie Kirk. A huge goal of mine was to sit down and debate Charlie Kirk, because he had ideas that I thought were worth seeking out to challenge. So it's like, that's how I know being a liberal and being a leftist doesn't mean that you're evil. These people that are coming out of the left, these radicals, I don't know what demonic spirit has possessed you, but my goodness, it's crazy to see. It's crazy to see that people on the left can be okay with this. Even in my own family, I'm disgusted by some of the stuff that I see. To think that it's okay to celebrate the murder of this young 31-year-old man because he says that he doesn't want black people to view ourselves as victims, because he doesn't think that your sex life should give you any kind of special treatment. And then they try to say he's racist and bigoted and homophobic and transphobic, all this stuff. He works with Blair White. He's worked with Rob Smith. He's worked with all these different people. Like, the amount of marginalized people that worked directly with Charlie Kirk. But the thing is Charlie never viewed them as marginalized. Charlie viewed them as people with great ideas. That's why he respected them. He didn't need them to play identity politics in order to respect them. I've had so many people reach out to me and be like, people who are from my past who didn't know what I was doing with my life until they saw the picture with Charlie Kirk apparently and reached out to me. They're like, you knew Charlie? You were cool with Charlie? Like, isn't Charlie racist? No. Every single time I interacted with Charlie, he did nothing more than empower me and make me feel that much more like I was doing exactly what it is that I needed to do. And to hear that from someone that I truly looked up to as a mentor, who, again, I had my fair share of things I disagreed with Charlie, and that's why I respected him. Because I knew that if I sat there and had the opportunity to, one of the shows I dreamt of going on was the Charlie Kirk show, and I knew it was getting closer and closer to happening. I was waiting for my next big project to finally, that I was going to announce, to finally go on his show and have a full conversation with him, because we've been in touch so much more this year. I was so excited for that because there were things I disagreed with him on. But I respected him because he, again, is the person who saved my generation from complete and utter demoralization. Progressivism was beating young people into the ground until Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA until these campus tours. He built an entire movement that brought people closer to faith and introduced people to a way of thinking that bettered every aspect of their lives. Now, as far as my personal relationship with Charlie, again, he was one of the key people that was why I do what it is that I do. And I still remember one of my first Fox appearances. Let me play this to make me laugh before I start breaking down in here. This was one of my first Fox appearances from March of 2023. And I remember when I said this, and you can hear how nervous I was because it was one of my first appearances. And I remember when I learned that I was going to be not only just on Ingram Angle, but the fact that I was going to be on there with the legendary Charlie Kirk. I was so excited, but so anxious. And I dropped this line, and his reaction to this day still cracks me up.
If you look at what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually is, it's just a fancy way to say anti-white. And if things don't change and people keep getting kicked out of multicultural centers or stop from getting jobs just because of their skin color, then white people are going to have to start their own civil rights movement because things have gotten way too woke and just toxic.
The way he's just like, wow, I had Charlie gagged. That is still one of my favorite moments. And how it's truly one of my favorite moments. It's so crazy. I actually posted that clip on Twitter. I reposted it the day of Charlie's assassination, just hours before the news, because I was reflecting on that. And because truly, it's one of my favorite moments from my career, even as nervous as I sound. I was honored to be on there with him. It was so cool. And even recently, just a couple months ago, Charlie reached out because he was hosting Fox and Friends. And I got up at like 3:30 a.m. to do that news hit because Charlie specifically asked for me to be on there because I respected him that much. And he was someone that I was working more and more to be under his wing. I met him in person for the first time, actually, at a Mar-a-Lago gala that PragerU hosted last December. And I have this picture with our PR, Sabrina, and it's me actually in the background. Can we pull that up? I would post a selfie we took, but I look a mess in it. This one to me is so funny. It's little moments like this that you don't realize how special they are until later on in life. Yeah, it was so cool to meet him. And the second I met him, I was so shocked that he actually knew who I was and that he remembered me. Because at that point, we had only had this was a year ago. We had only had one direct interaction at that point. And he came up to me and told me that he loves the work I was doing. And he was so excited to hear me speak. And I was just like, really? Like, you know who little old me is? And that was just such a cool moment. It was so cool to meet him. And again, it's like, this is why I need to start taking more pictures and just saving every little B-roll photo, because you never know how meaningful goofy little moments like this will end up being later on in life. Something I was really excited to continue doing this semester was going on the campus tour. Just the Saturday before Charlie's assassination, I met with a good friend of mine that's a close member on Charlie's team, and we were talking about the possibility of, I was going to do it, but we were talking about just like the logistics of me going and having essentially a mini campus tour with Charlie, where I would go and attend and promote his events like I did a few months ago, where we had our viral moment together, talking about mass incarceration. And I was going to do like speaking engagements and everything, which I still may do. But I was so excited to be able to go to the campus tour, because I'm telling you, if you did not have the chance to go to one of Charlie's campus debate tours, oh my goodness, you missed an era. You just had to be there. You really had to be there. Yeah, this is like a little clip from when I was there. I was screaming, Charlie's in the building. I was so hyped just to be a part of this. I was so privileged when I got the call saying that Charlie wanted me to be there and to work the crowd and everything. Oh, wait, this is not the version of the clip I meant to send, but we can keep it because it's still funny. Oh my gosh. I had a different version of it that I actually posted where it was like everybody like running around, but that one's funny too, so keep it for the plot.
Charlie's in the building! Walk with me! Let's go!
I'll walk with you.
Any day.
That was so fun. And then we had our moment where I said to him, I asked him, I was like, I said, if mass incarceration only incarcerates people who commit crime, why is it considered such a bad thing? And he goes, well, you're a white supremacist. And it was funny because a lot of the people in the crowd knew who I was. So they were like yelling at me like in a good way. And the people who didn't know thought I was going to be some deranged liberal. And everybody was gagged. It was just such a moment. You had to be there. Mr. Rodriguez, you were there. How special was that moment?
It was a beautiful time. It really was. I remember being there and just how excited I was just to accompany you. I knew it was such an honor. And just to see the people line up together to attend this event, to see the excitement around this event, to see so many young people coming out with their MAGA hats, coming out with their merch, just in support, I knew something special was happening. And to be there in person is completely different than to view it on socials and see the hype around it. But when you're there, you can feel it in the air. And I definitely knew that this was going to be a moment where I was going to be able to be a part of history for literally a turning point.
Yeah.
And being with you, and, you know, I remember when we arrived, you know, us kind of cutting through the big crowd there, and when we were in the pit and just looking around and seeing how excited everyone was in anticipation, waiting for Charlie. And it was so cool, and how Charlie included, you know, many influencers, up and comers, to be a part of the event and to contribute as well. It was so beautiful to see that. I was just like, wow, look at all this unity here. Look at all this unity. Even amidst the discourse, there was unity.
Yeah.
I loved every second of it. The excitement, it was palpable. And especially when he stepped into the pit. And I forget what song was playing. I think it was Guns N' Roses. It was Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah.
It was totally like so WWE. And everyone lost their stuff. And I think just being in such close proximity with him, to him, seeing how he genuinely cared for everyone, seeing how he had accountability to, not only did he have his friends there, he had pastors there. He had his pastor there, Rob McCoy. He had another pastor, James Cadiz, to his right. And there would be at times when he would look over to them in acknowledgement and nod his head when he would be answering certain questions. I think that, you know, because he got a lot of biblical questions. But all I will say, it was so special to be there, because little did you and I know that shortly, months to come, this terrible thing would happen, this horrific assassination. And so I'm so honored to have gone there with you, because I can certainly tell you, man, it was so meaningful to be there and capture that with you. And I had such a blast. You had to be there. You really did.
You really did. You really had to be there. Truly an iconic era that will continue And that's something that Turning Point USA is being very clear about, and I want to be very clear about as well, is the campus tour will continue. There's so many young voices that are stepping up and wanting to continue the discourse and the democracy and welcoming and challenging discussion over on college campuses. And that's exactly what needs to happen. That's exactly what we need to see is, is more discourse. We need to not be afraid to use our voices and to have conversations, but it needs to be without violence. Political violence is not the answer. I actually had some respect for some of the left-wing commentators that I've been very critical of. Like even Dean Withers had like a whole meltdown on TikTok about the situation because he found out while on live that Charlie had passed, and people were making fun of him. But it's like, no, Dean Withers, as much as I don't like what he stands for, and I find him extremely annoying, I would never want something to happen to him. And what I do respect about Dean is no matter who you are, Dean will sit there and have a debate with you. He'll have a discussion with you. He's more than happy to. So he is someone that, although I disagree with him a lot, I know that he champions democracy. So the people that were mocking him are being like, and condemning him and being like, it's your rhetoric. I get it. But at least he's showing humanity. So back off of people like him. Back off of people like Harry Sisson. Because again, at least they condemned it. Just like they condemned when Trump was shot. So, or at least I know Harry did. I don't know what Dean said about Trump getting shot. So, yeah, chill out. And I'd be lying to you guys if I said that this didn't temporarily put a lot of fear into me. Because again, I'm someone who wants to follow in these footsteps, but you know, you have to stand on business. Charlie Kirk died standing on what he believed in. Charlie Kirk lost his life standing on business. Dare I say he gave his life standing on business because he didn't lose anything. He lost his time on earth, but now he's in heaven, knowing that his work may be incomplete, but he didn't have unfinished business. I believe that's what, I forgot who exactly said that, but it was during the memorial, and I thought that was so powerful and so true and so valuable. There's so much work to be done. There's so much work to be done. Now, on the part of this conversation that I really hate to add in, which is why I'm putting it at the end, but there's all these narratives that are going on from the right, and I have to address it, and I hope I don't have to address this again because I really don't want to. But Charlie's death, of course, has led to a lot of suspicion of foul play around it, and I don't question that part at all. I definitely think that there was a group effort into this because there's way too many details about it that are suspicious. There's other pages and accounts that you can check out for that. I'm not going to get into all that right now because I'm not the FBI, but the way some of you get on the internet to cosplay the FBI is quite disgusting. You can't blame Israel for everything. You sound insane. And like there's a literal parasite in your brain that is wearing a kippah. You need to get a job. You need to get a life. You need to get a soul. Because the people who took this, that took Charlie's murder as a way to further their career or as a way to further their political agenda or to maximize their paywall, you're disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Whether you're on the far left or the far right or the left or the right. I'm quite disgusted by it. And the people coming up with these conspiracies, yeah, turn over every stone. Look into everything. There's people questioning if it was the back camera, if there was something on the ground, was it from the side? I get it. But let the FBI cook. Keep asking questions, but ask smart ones. Ask ones that actually make sense. But I have to sit here and address this stupid narrative about the Hamptons scandal that I've been given absolute hell about. That while I'm in the middle of grieving on vacation, I'm having my phone blown up every time I turn it back on, to the point where I would just keep my phone off for hours at a time, about this allegation that there was some foul play while some influencers and I were in the Hamptons. So I'm going to play this clip that gives a gist of what the allegation is. And really, there's a whole hit piece article about it that don't even look it up. Don't even give these people revenue. Here's the clip.
There was this meeting that took place in the Hamptons that allegedly Charlie was threatened.
All of these conservative young influencers who basically knew nothing were brought out to the Hamptons to basically hang out and party and feel like they were, in a reality show. And they were told that they were going to talk about Mahmoud Mamdani, who's likely to be the next New York mayor. And then in the middle of the meeting, I was told this by someone who was there, Ackman turns the whole thing into an argument about Israel. And then coming out of this meeting, everybody was offered a free trip to Israel. And Xaviaer DuRousseau is taken to Gaza, and DuRousseau was paid by the Israeli government to go there and deliver this absurd, flamboyant video mocking people for starving, denying starvation, and claiming that Hamas leaders are eating all the food, so they're going on Ozempic. And that's like what was coming out of this disgusting meeting where Charlie Kirk was being screamed at for trying to take like a mildly principled position.
Now, between that and there's other clips from that interview that people are making go viral, and large podcasters are also spreading the narrative that there was some secret dinner meeting and all this crazy stuff. It's actually the most insane thing I've heard in a while. So I wanted to play it in full once, and now I just want to break down piece by piece. Actually, I'm not even going to break down. I'm just going to tell you how idiotic this entire thing is. First of all, there was no connection between the Hamptons trip and me going to Israel. My trip to Israel, and I'm pretty sure you can go back and I have videos and tweets where I have talked about the fact that I have planned to go to Israel in August when this trip that he's talking about. I had already planned on going to Israel again back in like February or March because I was going for a wedding. And after I had already committed to going because of the wedding, I was invited to go on a tour. Which even before Charlie died, the episode came out after Charlie was murdered. But I filmed it before in my Israel. Did I get paid by Israel? Because that trip just continued. That trip in the Hamptons trip just continued to have all these narratives written about it. But I even said in that video that I pre-recorded that I was already planning on going, and that it was already prearranged months ago, and that the dates for it ended up aligning when I was going to this wedding. The Gaza trip and the Israel trip were completely different. The Israel tour was a certain amount of dates. Then on the last day of that tour, I skipped it to go to a wedding. The day after that, my last day in Israel, which was going to be a free day, I was invited by some friends that I had there that were in the military, or actually not in the military, but they do something over there. I don't even know. I don't even know what these people's title are. Everybody in Israel is just doing something. But a couple people over there invited me to go to Gaza to see what was happening with the humanitarian aid. And why did they invite me? Because when I was sitting down with some of the journalists and leaders and politicians and the different people that I had the privilege of meeting there, I was asking the questions that Americans were asking. I wanted to know, why are people starving? What's happening with the aid? And then they were like, we are actually working on putting together a trip. If we can do this tomorrow, do you want to go to Gaza to see what's happening over there? And then this narrative that I was paid to go to, because we're still going to get back to the Hamptons trip. Don't get it fooled. The Gaza trip, as I said in the previous video that I did all about the Israel trip, I was not paid to go to Gaza or to Israel. The sponsored element of it, or my flight was paid for the Israel tour, because I went on a tour, and pretty much it was just because they are, every country does that. They bring influencers and creators over to see the country, to promote tourism, all of that. The Gaza tour, the only reason that the humanitarian aid was considered sponsored is because they paid for the bus right there. So this guy who's out here making slanderous lies, let's debunk that part first. Now back to the main topic at hand, the Hamptons trip. The Hamptons lie is actually insane. So first of all, no. Charlie Kirk and Bill... No, actually, but let me back up, because I'm just even getting frustrated talking about this because it's so stupid. How the Hamptons came about. In July, I was hit up by Turning Point staff that said, hey, we are thinking to put together a couple dozen influencers. We want to see if you would be interested in going. What it was about was Charlie Kirk, who, as I've said many, many times, wanted to help rise up some of the up and coming creators and the people that could potentially start doing campus tours. Some of the people that he thought had the it factor. Some of the people who he thought could start working with Turning Point in new capacities or doing their own. He wanted to create a bunch of different Charlies so that he didn't have to be the only one doing these campus tours, because he knew how impactful it was. So he invited myself and about, I saw somewhere 35, I thought it was like 25, somewhere around 30. He invited a bunch of creators out there, and we went there and we had a range of topics. It was called Save the West. Bill Ackman was the surprise guest, and Bill Ackman, I believe, funded it. That was never confirmed for me, but I believe he funded it. I assume he did. But Bill Ackman was the surprise guest. If you don't know who Bill Ackman is, he's a multi-billionaire. I think he's worth at least $10 billion. He's a big hedge fund guy who's very vocal about Israel and politics and conservative values. Has like 1.8 million on Twitter. He's a well-known name in many different sectors. So we got to sit down with him. What we were doing there was workshopping our debating skills. We were not there just to talk about Israel. We talked about Israel. We talked about Islam. Yes, we talked a lot about Mamdani. We talked a lot about economy. We talked about dating. We talked about abortion. We talked about marriage. We talked about immigration. We talked about all these different things, and how each of them started was Charlie, who is the pinnacle of the political content creator world, literally arguably the biggest one in the world. If he wasn't before, he is now. He would say something provocative. After he would say a provocative statement, he would be like, what do you guys think about this? And then all the creators in here who are all known for having something to say, we all had something to say. So we had discourse, and some of the discourse got a little heated. I'm not talking screaming, but like, it got a little intense. We were having back and forth discourse. But after each topic, we're just like, oh, okay, cool. This is what we do. We debate. We converse. We have discourse. After that, we had dinner at night, and we were all laughing and drinking wine and having a good time. That's what it was. It was like 36 hours in the Hamptons. It wasn't even like a full 2 days, I don't believe. It was like 36 hours there, maybe 48, where we sat there, we had workshops, and we talked about various topics. Bill Ackman, I could be wrong on this, but I don't even think Bill Ackman was in there when we talked about Israel. Bill Ackman, the sessions he led the economic section, and he joined in during the marriage and dating portion. Those were the only 2 sections where he spoke. For most of it, he wasn't even in the room. He was enjoying his time in Bridgehampton. So this idea that Charlie Kirk and Bill Ackman started fighting in a room full of content creators who would have loved nothing more to get that on camera, you're insane. Absolutely insane. And then you have the people who are trying to go and say that, oh, then why was the meeting so secretive? The photos were already on my Instagram. The reason we didn't post that in the real time was because of safety. Do you know how many people would have loved to come and slaughter that whole hotel? So no, after the meeting was over, we went and we posted photos. And out of confidentiality of all of us debating, we didn't record the sessions out of respect for each other. What is abnormal about that? Nothing. Exactly. We were workshopping our debating skills, led by Charlie Kirk. And then people are taking things out of context, because there was in the article, the hit piece that came out, it talks about how Charlie raised up his phone and had written on Twitter, and he said something like, BB needs to resign or something like that. And he goes, what would happen if I do this? There was discourse, and then there was one woman who sat in the back who said, if you do that, you're indirectly going to empower Hamas. And then Charlie was like, see, you have to stop saying like that. He was saying that when you are debating about Israel, you need to stop doing it emotionally. You need to do it logically and factually. Otherwise, you lose the debate. He said it is moral blackmail if you say that somebody saying that a politician is bad, that you're then empowering a terrorist organization. Fair argument. Fair argument. And there were even things that Charlie didn't even necessarily disagree, or he didn't even necessarily agree with or disagree with. Either way, he would just push back on each of us, no matter what the conversation was about. That's what we were there doing. So no, it wasn't this situation of, oh, we were sitting around and having, some people even sat and called it an intervention for Charlie. You think Charlie Kirk flew out a bunch of content creators for an intervention when he has a wife at home? When he has senior staff at home? When he has God? You really think that Charlie Kirk funded or led for the funding of his own intervention? Are you insane? How stupid do you have to be to even think that? And the reason I'm so frustrated about this is because I've been put through hell because of this. The amount of people who have blown up my line and the hit pieces that have coming out, insane and disrespectful and disgusting that you would sit here and take this dead man's legacy and taint it by trying to make it seem like a harmless meeting we had in the Hamptons over a month ago had any connection to his death. And then you want to say that we all got free tickets to Israel because we went and bombarded Charlie about not being pro-Israel enough? Charlie was a Zionist down. Yeah, he had his criticisms of Israel. Who doesn't? People in Israel do too. So no, it was never this intervention to try to get at Charlie Kirk. That's insane. You're delusional. And every single person that's spreading that lie should feel disgusted by yourself. And most of the people who are spreading it, they've slowed down for the most part on it because they realized they sounded stupid. But where's the apology at? Where's the apology that while people are grieving and emotional about the fact that Charlie Kirk just got murdered in front of a crowd full of people and all over the internet, there's no apology that you just tried to pinpoint people like me and my influencer friends for his death? Are you insane? A guy that was mentoring us, you want to sit there and say that we're accountable for that? Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And then there's the side narrative where people are saying that there was because first it wasn't enough to say that, oh, during the debates that we were having that we were bombarding Charlie. Then it became, oh, there was actually a secret dinner. No, the hell there was not. What secret dinner? If Bill Ackman and Charlie Kirk ever got into an argument, it wasn't in front of any of the influencers because we were all together pretty much the entire time. And that never happened. They were in great spirits the entire time. We were chilling, kicking it. Bill Ackman is actually really chill and really cool and really normal, which is surprising for somebody of that net worth. Usually they're a little quirky, but we were chilling. Charlie was chilling. Everybody was catching a vibe. That was it. And it was a beautiful experience. It was such a fun time. It's such something that I wish I could just only cherish because it was my last time getting to hang out with Charlie Kirk. And it was such a fun experience. It was beautiful. The photos we took, the vibes we had, everything about it was such a great time. But instead, it has been turned by nutcase conspiracy theorists. You have a far left journalist sitting down with a far right journalist who admits to everybody in his personal circle how much he hates his own life because he knows that his decisions have led him to this audience of ignorant people that believe every lie he spews, and he has to keep being more extreme in order to stay relevant. You have people like that are linking up and getting into cahoots to slander Charlie's legacy and to slander Bill Ackman, who's also grieving. Please. But I digress. There might be some other lies in that, but I don't want to keep going on about that because, ultimately this video is not about debunking every single ignorant narrative that's out there. It's about honoring Charlie Kirk, my friend, my mentor, someone I've looked up to for many years, someone I was having the privilege of getting to know more and more this year. We were actually planning our next meetup that we were going to have later in the year. And sad. It's heartbreaking. It's devastating to see what happened. But the silver lining is that, again, there are so many more people that are going to be outspoken. I've had so many people who are content creators in various other sectors or people who are just like personal friends of mine reach out saying that they want to start being outspoken and building a platform on values and virtues and wanting to get involved in politics and all these different things because of Charlie Kirk. So Charlie, I know that you are proud of your real friends and your family for what they are doing to honor you and that they're leading the mission that you started. We will not let you down because we love you, Charlie.